The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a scholar of the law, tested him by asking, "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" He said to them, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and the first commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. The whole law and the prophets depend on these two commandments." The Gospel of the Lord. Both Jesus and the Pharisees honored the law. That wasn't their disagreement. Their disagreement was over how to live in faithfulness to God. For the Pharisees, it was all about the law. The law is the goal. Obedience to the letter of the law is faithfulness to God. For Jesus, the purpose of the law is to put us in the right relationship with God and with others. Therefore, love of God and love of neighbor is the very heart of the law. Any effort to fulfill the law must flow through those two commandments. We tend to think that in the Old Testament, God was angry. God was just waiting to punish people for their sins. But now we hear in the book of Exodus that God was compassionate. God hears the cries of the people who are being mistreated. The Exodus happened over 1,200 years before Christ. This passage, however, only challenges negative behavior. Do not molest or oppress. Do no wrong. Don't lend money at interest. It's pretty easy to avoid doing the negative. Jesus takes it to the next level by making it a positive. He says we are called to love God and to love our neighbor. This radical love can't be followed by out of obligation or duty. It must come from the heart. We must do whatever love requires, and that changes everything. Jesus goes so far as to say that the whole law and the prophets depends on these two commands. No other commandment of the law is properly obeyed if either of these two commands is transgressed. Everything depends on love. Jesus is saying that love of God and love of neighbor are not two separate things. As if we could love God and not love the people God has created. Our love for others is really the love of God flowing through us to them. It's been over 3,000 years since our compassionate God pointed us on the path of compassion. The people struggled with it then. We've struggled with it all along, and we struggle with it today. We've tried everything else over and over again. We've had wars and conflicts since day one, and we still have them today. We've had competitions and formed all sorts of alliances. We just won't try fully living love of God and love of our neighbor. Think of the difference it could make in our families, in our communities, in our world. We were created in the image of our God who is compassionate. We were created in the image of love. We were created to be in loving relationships. I've mentioned this quote from G.K. Chesterton before. He was an English writer and philosopher. And he said, "The Christian ideal hasn't been tried and found wanting. It's been found difficult and left untried. Maybe it's time."